charges involved or mentioned?
Yeah, he said he stabbed somebody, I guess.
Are you or anyone else in danger right now?
I'm sure anybody is around him right now.
He killed for the sake of killing. Currently, the internet is spiraling out of control as Wade Wilson continues to pique the interest of millions across the globe. According to reports, Wilson's smug, soulless behavior in court has made him famous. So, who is Wade Wilson really? Does he just kill people for fun, or is there something more evil going on? Here's what the Deadpool killer is really about. Recently, Wilson's behavior in court was nothing short of scary. According to several media outlets, Wilson didn't show any emotion during his trial in court. He sat stone cold or whispered to his attorneys, many reported. And of course, this stiff exterior only made him seem creepier. His tattoos on his face, which included stitches and swastikas, made things even more controversial. His lawyers even asked that he be able to cover them up with makeup during jury selection and the trial, saying that possible jurors might not like the tattoos. He would like to appear presentable to the jury deciding his guilt or innocence, or whether he lives or dies, they said. And even though the judge let Wilson get a haircut and makeup, it was clear the whole time that Wilson never wore the makeup intentionally. What transpired in court served as a sneak peek at the horrifying information that emerged regarding Wilson's actions. Wilson murdered Diane Ruiz and Christine Melton, two residents of Cape Coral, Florida. Later, a Lee County jury found Wilson guilty of first-degree murder on June 12, 2024. Yet that was not even the worst of what he did. Wilson was also found guilty of big theft, violence, burglary, and small theft, according to the news press. The same jury decided that he should be executed after deliberating for slightly over an hour and a half. Now, the sequence of incidents that ended in the murders is eerie and intricate. On October 6, 2019, Wilson went to a live music-filled Cape Coral pub where he met Christine Melton and her friend Stephanie Sailors. The trio arrived at Melton's apartment early the following morning. After the Sailors left, Smith choked Melton to death in her bed. Then he got into her car and drove away. Not long after Melton's death, Wilson noticed Diane Ruiz strolling down a Cape Coral street. He asked her how to get to a neighboring school, and that helped him get her into the stolen car. When she attempted to get away, he struck and choked her before pushing her out of the car and running over her 10 or 20 times. The horrific nature of the crime surprised many, portraying Wilson as a monster who had no remorse for his actions. In case you are wondering who the victims were, Christine Melton, a 35-year-old from Illinois, had accompanied a friend on their move to Cape Coral. She was a kind individual, as stated by those close to her. She worked as a waitress, but many who knew her said she was happy-go-lucky and always willing to serve others. Melton's friend from high school, Stephanie Sailors, claimed that she was a wonderful friend who cherished animals. Her cousin Samantha Katimer also related how Melton was the wise aunt to her child, making everyone feel comfortable and understood. Christine will never experience motherhood, a role she was born to play, Katimer stated. On the other end, in Cape Coral, Nicole Ruiz, 43, was employed as a bartender and waiter at the Moose Lodge. She had 2 children and was engaged. She received positive feedback from both clients and friends. Ernie Carroll remarked, "She didn't have a bad bone in her body." Her fiancé, Scott Hannon, referred to her as the love of my life. Her son, Zane Romero, also stated that his mother passed away a few days prior to his high school marching band debut, an event she was eagerly awaiting. Romero remarked, "My mom will never get to see me get married." As the hearing went on, the media attention on it grew, and every detail was looked at and talked about. During the closing arguments, Assistant State Attorney Andreas Gardner said that Wilson killed people for the sake of killing. He also said that strangulation is the epitome of life slipping through someone's hands.
She was to go and watch me perform at that weekend's football game. She would have been her first time seeing me perform because that was my first year in that marching band. She never got to see me perform, and I never got the experience of seeing her in the crowd. My mother supported my dreams and only ever wanted me to succeed in life. She always reassured me that my life wasn't going to end if I got a C in math. She always made sure that all the hard work I was putting into my education wasn't going unnoticed. She would always show up with random gifts that helped me and succeeded in my life for what I needed. When I was younger, I originally wanted to be a photographer. My mother went out of her way to find me a professional beginner photographer. She knew I wanted to print my photos, and she bought me a printer with photo paper. I no longer have those dreams, but I still constantly use those items. She was raised in a tough home environment and only ever wanted to give me and my brother nothing like that. She wanted us to grow up in a loving home and for us to be happy. My mother was a single mother who only ever wanted, not only for her family, but everybody around her to be happy. My mother's life dream was to be able to get married and raise her family. She was so close to getting everything she wanted. I was forced to move states to better accommodate for what I needed for my education. I moved far away from Florida.
Wilson is said to have told detectives in a jailhouse interview, "I would do it again." Naturally, Wilson is perceived by many as more than just a murderer who was apprehended due to his actions and behavior. The severity of his actions, his lack of remorse, and his intended attempts to alter his appearance during the trial all suggest a darker, more sinister side to him. Some even believe Wilson is a rare and frightening historical criminal because he loves the spotlight and fame. His murderous acts and the evidence presented in court present a picture of a man who is a cold-blooded sociopath and not just a killer. As per the latest details, Judge Nicholas Thompson will make Wilson's fate known on July 23, 2024. The judge has the final say, but the jury's recommendation on the death penalty is quite significant.
How old are you, sir?
46.
You know someone by the name of Wade Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know Wade Wilson?
He's my son.
How old were you when you found out you were going to be his father?
14 or 15.
How old was his mother at the time?
A year younger than me.
Now, were either of you in a position at that age to be able to raise him?
No, ma'am.
Was he placed up for adoption?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was he adopted by?
Candy and Steve Wilson.
And did they have any connection to you or Wade Wilson's mother?
They went to church with Wade's mother's parents.
So that was how they connected and ended up raising Wade Wilson?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, do they have any other children?
Yes, ma'am. 2 daughters.
Now, at some point, did you and Wade Wilson connect?
Yes, ma'am.
How old was Wade Wilson when he connected with you?
18.
And was he wanting to connect with you because you're his biological father?
Yes.
And up until that point, had you ever met him?
No, ma'am.
Did you end up...
Because of this case, debates concerning the death penalty, mental health, and the criminal justice system have also resumed. Assuming Wilson's narrative is not over yet, the consequences of his actions will linger for years to come. The case already has a lot of public interest, and that interest will only grow while we wait for the judge's decision. Naturally, the community in Cape Coral has been altered for a very long time by the murders of Diane Ruiz and Christine Melton. Both women were adored by friends and family, and their deaths has left an emptiness that can never be healed. Essentially, Wade Wilson is a danger to everyone in addition to being a murderer. Wilson's visage is frightening, but so is his rap sheet. He was convicted of numerous offenses, including beating his 41-year-old ex-girlfriend, Melissa Montanes, entering into 2 houses and stealing, and taking Christine Melton's car. This 30-year-old felon continued to kill. He had already killed 3 people when he assaulted Montanes, using Melton's stolen car to drive to Fort Myers.
And it escalated quickly.
Did you agree to get in the car?
No.
And when you would not agree to get in the car, how did he act?
Violent, aggressive, tried to pull me in the car physically, and I resisted, got plank style so that he could not grab me into the vehicle.
When you say you got plank style, could you just show the jurors what you mean by that?
And I was being pulled into the car by my dress.
Okay, so for the record, you just stood up and put your hands straight above your head.
Yes, so that I was not being able to be budged into the vehicle.
And you said he's pulling at your dress.
Yes.
Can you describe in more detail how he's pulling at your dress?
He's pulling dress, probably a little hair, everything, and then the dress starts to rip off of my body.
And what happens after that?
Once he realizes that the threads were becoming, I was getting away from him and he was still holding onto the dress, he opens the car door, obviously forgets to put it in park. The car starts to roll forward. He tackles to me to the ground. The car grazes both of our legs and I'm pummeled to the ground.
How hard did he push you to the ground?
This person practically shouts danger. He also has a ton of additional tattoos after his incarceration, including swastikas, lip tattoos that resemble the Joker, and a tattoo on his neck that reads, "Bred for War." However, that's hardly the worst aspect. Stephen Testaseca, 46, Wilson's father, has revealed his son's awful remarks in court. Testaseca, who raised Wilson as a baby after becoming a teen parent, claimed that their relationship was unstable. On October 7th, however, Wilson did make contact with his father after killing Melton and Ruiz. Testaseca recalled, "He declared, 'I am a killer.'" He initially assumed it was just one of his son's wild tales, given he tells good stories. Yet the terrible truth soon surfaced. The terrifying stories Wilson told his father made his skin tingle. He told stories about running over Ruiz multiple times until she looked like spaghetti and how he choked her after she fell asleep. Based on his statements, Testaseca portrayed a man devoid of empathy who delighted in causing harm to others.
He rolled her up and was going to try to put her in her trunk, but he couldn't lift her.
Did he say why he was unable to put her in her trunk?
He said that he felt like rigor mortis had started to set in.
And does rigor mortis make your body stiff? You didn't know?
I think so.
So he just told you that that was the reason that he couldn't lift her and get her into her trunk?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he said her trunk, it was the trunk of her car he was going to put her in?
Yes, ma'am.
So what did he tell you he did when he couldn't get her body into her own trunk?
He left her there and took her car.
But is it possible that Wilson's actions were influenced by something much sinister? From here on out, things only get worse. According to court documents, Wilson is associated with the notorious white supremacist prison gang known as the Unforgiven. Now, for those of you who don't know, Unforgiven is the largest white supremacist group in Florida. They started out in the state penitentiary system in 1986. According to the Anti-Defamation League, this gang wants to expand its influence, territory, and authority both inside and outside of prison, in addition to simply surviving. They aggressively seek out new members and instill in them a dangerous brand of ideology that is pervasive throughout their entire life. White supremacists, that is. According to USA Today, court documents from a federal racketeering case from 2021 involving 16 members of Unforgiven reveal the gang's terrifying operational procedures. People must study and propagate Aryan philosophy, pay dues, and engage in violent behavior in order to join and remain in the gang. Their bodies are covered with tattoos of Nazi emblems such as SS bolts, iron crosses, and swastikas, which are forced upon them. Yet the Unforgiven are not merely aggressive because of their beliefs in body art. The gang's operations are more profitable when they sell weapons, drugs, and other illicit goods. They resist and rebel collectively against what they perceive to be the constant and almost brutal victimization of whites within the Florida jail system. Their violent uprising is motivated by their mistaken notion that they are victims. The gang's primary sign is an iron cross and a hideous assortment of SS lightning bolts that fit together like a puzzle. They also use the code 21212, which is an odd name for an odd group, with 21 standing for unity, 2 for brotherhood, and 12 for loyalty. Having said that, there's also the possibility that Wilson has mental health issues, which in one possibility might be a counter-argument used by his attorneys. You see, time and again, Wilson's illegal behavior has been attributed to a drug-addled, diseased mind. However, Assistant District Attorney Miller was not in favor of this notion. He argued that hate, lust, power, and control were the true driving forces behind Wilson's heinous deeds. And although that is really the case, could it be possible that Wilson's criminal mind was more deeply rooted in the shadowy aspects of his past? What if Wade Wilson had inherited the traits of a soulless monster from his early years? Although it's simple to assume that serial killers are awful individuals who are by nature wicked, psychological research frequently paints a more complicated picture. Many of the most well-known robbers in history come from households where they suffered severe injuries. Remember Pablo? Assuming that is the case, Wade Wilson's horrible actions might have been brought on by abuse or other types of early trauma, which is not only a plausible but interesting idea to explain why he behaved badly. Now, in order to fully understand Wilson's transformation into the man he was in court, smiling while being referred to as a psychopathic strangler, we must consider more than simply the events that occurred there. Consider the possibility that Wilson experienced terrible abuse or neglect as a child. Adoption, however, may have been a significant and early indicator of being left behind in Wilson's instance. He may have deep-seated resentment and unstable emotions as a result of feeling rejected and inferior by their biological parents. In fact, adopted children may struggle with thoughts of unworthiness or inadequacy because they believe their biological parents didn't desire them. This sense of rejection might be exacerbated by loneliness and the fear of being abandoned once more. As a result, this early stress may have increased Wilson's likelihood of acting aggressively in the future. He may have developed a distorted perspective of the world, seeing violence and control as means of asserting his significance and power, as a result of the message that he wasn't loved or deserving. Another significant aspect of Wilson's history was his allegedly troubled connection with his father. If Wilson's father had been violent or uncaring toward him, their relationship could have had a significant effect on Wilson's development psychologically. Relationships of this type may have been traumatized by verbal or physical violence, or by a lack of psychological support. Then again, a youngster who grows up with a nasty father figure may become extremely irate and resentful. This resentment may be harbored as a generalized mistrust of those in positions of authority and may extend to interpersonal interactions with members of the public at large. Wilson may also have acted violently out of unresolved resentment, particularly if his father had mistreated him and then severely punished him or had employed emotional blackmail to convince Wilson that control and power were the best ways to handle situations. Not to forget, Wilson might have learned to view relationships through the prism of control and manipulation as a result of his father's lack of empathy and concern. Wilson might have grown up believing that using force and dominance to obtain control is a good strategy if he experienced severe punishment or insufficient attention. And of course, then there's the fact that Wilson may have suffered equally as much from having a violent father as he would have from not having his mother in his life. Wilson could have had a more difficult time getting mental stability and assistance if he had not had a nurturing mother figure in his early years. Having a nasty mother can have an equal negative impact on mental health as not having one. Children require unwavering affection and support in order to develop a strong sense of self and positive interactions with other people. They may grow up feeling abandoned and neglected if you don't take this action. And the fact that Wilson targeted a mother and an aunt as his victims made his acts all the more terrifying. This pattern of violence against women may indicate a more profound and intimate distaste for them. Wilson's past suggests that the painful emotional gap his absent mother left behind during his early years may be connected to this anger. Naturally, Wilson's distaste for women in general might have come from his relationship, or lack thereof, with his mother. If his mother hadn't been there, Wilson would have become enraged with the female role model she represented when he was younger. As a result, he may have been trying to exert control over those who reminded him of how he was abandoned and emotionally mistreated as a youngster by choosing to target women, particularly mothers. And while all that might have made you believe, even if for a second, that Wilson might have an innocent bone in his body, there are actual women out there who are submitting emotional letters to a court in the hopes that they will save his life as they wait for Court Thompson's ruling. Another Canadian woman told the judge that she has seen Wilson look healthier in jail. If you look past his tattoos to his face structure, since being in prison and medicated, he is healthier. His face is fuller compared to his booking picture, where his face is gaunt, pale, and he looks unhealthy, she wrote. Yet after 1 hour and 45 minutes of deliberation last month, the jury decided 9-3 in favor of the death penalty for Melton's murder and 10-2 in favor of the death penalty for Ruiz's murder. This was enough to meet the law that says at least 8 jurors must be in favor. But it looks like these women believe that their emotional arguments can trump what the jury decides. Of course, Judge Thompson will have the final say on July 23rd. Right now, the screams for assistance seem almost unbelievable, but the strain is building. What do you think? Would life in jail be a more appropriate punishment for Wade Wilson, allowing him the opportunity to make amends and start over? Or should he be executed once and for all? Let us know in the comments below. To catch us for more developments on Wilson's case, simply click on the bell icon.